Hello. I want to talk today about the astrological weather for the lunar month from August 12th through September 10th, and I'm going to cover just the highlights and hopefully do this in 30 minutes or less. So let me share my screen and we can begin. Now, this always takes me a few seconds to get everything set up, get panels out of the way that keep me from seeing what I'm trying to do. But I'm also going to add a timestamp to the description so that you can just skip over this part and get to the presentation. Okay, so this is the astrological weather report for the lunar month, August 12th through September 10th. And first, let me do a quick review of the last lunar month, which was very momentous. And the thing I highlighted most in the last lunar month was what I called the Great Harmony on July 21st, 2026, which was also the day of the first quarter moon. And the late great mundane astrologer Andre Barbeau thought this would be the most harmonious day of the century. Well, is that a good description? Was it really all that harmonious? Not necessarily. We had war going on between America and Iran, Russia, and Ukraine. A lot of stress and tension in the world. So let's take a look back at what was going on and see what was really happening at this time. We had a lot of lovely sextiles and trines, and even opposition involving Jupiter, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. Now, trines and sextiles mean an easy coordination of energies. So the drives or energies represented by these planets were going to coordinate together very well. All of those aspects were exact to the degree, with Pluto at 4 degrees, Neptune 4 degrees, Uranus 4 degrees, Jupiter 4 degrees. But the energies of Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto are also very transcendent. These are things that most people do not usually deal with. And so they can actually be disruptive in many ways. Some higher kind of vibration is trying to break through into your consciousness, some larger perspective, some newer understanding. So rather than characterizing this as harmony, a better word might be intensity, the great intensity of July 21st, 2026. Now, a question that was on my mind as this date approached was, would we actually see something very harmonious and very extraordinary that would just take place all of a sudden, some big shift like an earthquake? Or would it be a more gradual shift over time, like when you have a tidal surge that just keeps rising and rising and rising? Well, as it turned out, it looks like it's going to be more like a tide that just keeps rising, rising, and rising, and that changes things over time. Now, one of the closest things I can relate this to, and particularly in my life, is the enduring sextile between Neptune and Pluto that was exact several times throughout the 1950s. And we saw a lot of social change in the 1950s. A lot of these responses to higher energy often take place first in music and the arts. And the 50s brought us new art forms. In music, we had rock and roll, Elvis Presley, and that kind of foreshadowed the even deeper changes that occurred in the 1960s when Pluto and Uranus became conjunct in the middle of that decade. So I think we're seeing the same thing now. I think we're at the start of a big shift. But exactly what is going to occur here? It's going to unfold over time. And the only thing I'm fairly certain of is that people's minds are opening up, perspectives are changing. Politically, we've even had Marjorie Taylor Greene break with President Trump, and we see more Republicans in Congress beginning to do the same. We see people questioning their support for various leaders at this point in time. And the Sabian symbol for the midpoint of this configuration at 4+ degrees of Taurus seems very appropriate. A widow at an open grave reorientation. We seem to be going through some sort of reorientation now rather than just a sudden great harmony. It's a great intensity and a great reorientation that has begun, but will take some time to unfold, at least the rest of this decade. Now, because sextiles, trines, and oppositions are all six harmonic aspects, I thought that the six harmonic chart for this moment would be an important modifier. And I think in retrospect, it has been. In this chart, I saw two paths, one more transcendent, where Uranus, Jupiter, Pluto, and Neptune are all tightly conjunct in Aries, representing these higher energies, these higher perspectives that people are starting to become aware of. And with these planets in Aries, it would be something more individualistic. It happened on an individual basis rather than everyone following some sort of mass religion. And Saturn in Gemini is making a strong sextile to these planets in the six harmonic chart. And I wrote here that meditation, inner discipline, and controlling one's mind will assist progress. There's going to be a steady, enduring focus on new ideas, new forms of communication, and new dreams that we want to bring into reality over time. That will assist this transformation. The other path here is represented by a strong square between Mars and Chiron. And we also have Mars in opposition to Mercury. And we can consider a square between Mercury and Chiron so that we're completing a grand cross, not a grand cross, but a T cross here. And this suggests that aggressive feelings, disagreements, wounding, ongoing conflict, war, retribution, arguments, that is going to be the other path that people can choose to take. And we have seen that unfold between certain countries like the United States and Iran. So we have these two paths before us at this point, and this does indeed seem to be the case in retrospect. We have this more transcendent path that involves discipline and control, long-term pursuit of goals, and we have this very destructive path that involves militaristic actions and constant wounding. Now, going forward for the rest of this decade, you can see the many times that we have these harmonious aspects between Uranus and Neptune, Uranus and Pluto, and Neptune and Pluto. But in 2028, 2029, we get a little bit more tension with Pluto in Aquarius squaring Chiron and Taurus. This might involve some sort of transformation of the financial sector. And we'll just have to wait and see how things are playing out as we get close to these periods of an exact square in 2028, 2029. And this is what I was talking about that was happening in the 1950s. Neptune making exact sextile to Pluto several times throughout the years from 1950 through 1956. And that was really reflected in the arts, and not only in music, but also in ballet, where George Balanchine in the New York City Ballet presented a different approach to dance, as did Martha Graham with modern dance. So again, The arts often respond more quickly than other sectors of our world when these higher energies are involved. Now, in looking at the chart for America and also the chart for Trump, I had seen several months before, at least 7 months prior to July of 2026, that both America and Trump would likely go through a very dark period in July and August. There'd be a dark cloud hanging over both because transing Saturn would be opposite natal Saturn for pretty much all of the July 1776 charts that people might use for America. And in Trump's case, transing Saturn was in strong opposition to natal Chiron for these 2 months. I did not know 7 months ago what the dark cloud would be, but now I think we can all agree that it is this conflict with Iran. Now, America is being thrown a lifeline because transing Chiron is also sextile natal Venus, so there is going to be some healing that occurs among people. Things will not feel quite as bad as perhaps they are. And I think that that has been the case. But we have also had these aspects from Mars, transits from Mars, which have exacerbated conflict. We had Mars conjunct Uranus uh, around the start of the past lunar month. And then toward the end of July, we had Mars conjunct natal Mars in the July 2nd, 1776 chart for the passage of the Declaration of Independence. And so, America, we were pretty much involved in war and conflict in July. In August, we have Mars square ascendant, Mars conjunct midheaven for that July 2nd, 1776 chart. With a lot of mundane charts, I take any aspects to the ascendant or midheaven with a grain of salt because we usually don't know the exact time of birth for these things. So just take this with a grain of salt and see how things go. Now, Donald Trump also had a lifeline thrown to him as a result of transing Chiron trine his ascendant. Throughout the month of July and so far into August, he has experienced a lot of wounding, a lot of political wounding. There was also a potential for physical attacks, uh, and there were reports that Iran wanted to assassinate him, and he changed planes a couple of times, just as a safeguard. Also, a heightened chance of illness if that has happened. We haven't heard about it. And there's still a possibility that he may no longer be president by the end of August. But it looks like this lifeline being thrown to him might keep him in office after all. And right now, transing Saturn has turned retrograde on July 26th. And I think that has caused somewhat of a pause in the conflict with Iran. The battle is not as hot as it was. It's like everyone is taking a pause, stepping back, and thinking about what they're doing. And then transing Chiron turned retrograde on August 3rd. And with it turning retrograde, it's applying this trine to Trump's ascendant again. So as the impact of Saturn opposite his Chiron begins to wane a bit, the impact of transing Chiron trine his ascendant is increasing, and that is to his benefit. And then I also pointed out last month that this July 21st, 2026 configuration was going to very strongly affect J.D. Vance because he has his north node in the 10th house at 14 plus degrees of Gemini. And so transing Uranus was conjunct that exact to the degree. And these other planets were offering trines and sextiles. This looked like it would advance his status. And according to artificial intelligence, his status did advance quite a bit in July. He was involved in more political decisions, negotiations, appearing on news programs more. And of course, the birth of, I think, is his fourth child, that also brought him back into the news. And I read the other day that Trump has told his donors that they should support J.D. Vance for president when Trump leaves office. Okay. Now, as far as Iran goes, it had a lot of negative aspects in July with Chiron square Jupiter, Jupiter square Chiron, Pluto opposite Jupiter and square natal Chiron, transiting Mars square the lunar nodal axis. This has caused a lot of ongoing suffering for Iran, but it also had a couple of positive aspects, transiting Saturn trine the natal moon and Mars, transiting Mars trine natal Mars. This seems to have helped Iran dig in its heels to continue with this conflict and to continue with a militaristic approach. So the bottom line is that a lot of what was expected for the world has happened. The one thing that there were questions about was simply just how harmonious would things be on July 21st, and would we see something happen suddenly or things unfold over time? And what we have seen is it appears to be more of an increase in intensity that is going on, and we're seeing higher energies, expansion of consciousness, those kinds of forces working together in a very coordinated way. But it's like a gradually rising tide that will eventually change everything, but it looks like it's going to unfold over time. Okay, now let's look at the world, Trump, and some other things, America, uh, for this lunar month from August 12th through September 10th. And for the world, we have some good aspects. Neptune, sextile Pluto is very strong. That's very transcendent. Jupiter trine Saturn, that is going to be very strong in the last week of August, first week of September. That will probably help with growth and reconstruction. We do have some periods where things will be a little bit more tense or depressing. We have Mars square Neptune for a few days around August 17th. This could result in violence, military action, lies, deceit. We have Venus opposite Saturn. This could cause some shortages of some sort, something very depressing to people. We have Mars square Saturn around the 1st of September. Again, this could very easily be a trigger for some kind of violence in the world or military action. And then in the second week of September, we have Venus in opposition to Chiron. So people could feel more of a sense of being wounded as a result. Now, the new moon on August 12th, it's actually a solar eclipse. And things look perhaps even more harmonious than they did on July 21st. But remember, these are higher energies, much of them that are working together in a coordinated fashion. So, as I've suggested, the word intensity might be a better descriptor of what's going on. And with Venus in a strong opposition to Neptune, there can be some deception at work or some unrealistic thoughts or goals taking place among the general public. Now, once more, because there's so many sextiles, trines, and oppositions, At the time of the solar eclipse, those are all six harmonic aspects. So I've looked at the six harmonic chart for the solar eclipse. This is going to likely be an important modifier, and we have a strong conjunction between Mars and Chiron. So I do expect some wounding to occur this month, most likely through aggressive or militaristic actions. So it's not all going to be fun and games, even though several planets are coordinating their energies, their drives together quite well. There's going to be wounding, most likely. When we get to the lunar eclipse on August 27th, that's the new moon. So this is eclipse season we're entering. We have a strong T square involving the Sun, Mercury, Moon, and Uranus in Gemini. So we could expect a lot of unexpected events. Expect the unexpected, particularly inventions, sudden advances in technology, if nothing else. And because those are fourth harmonic aspects, the square and the opposition for the lunar eclipse chart, I think that the fourth harmonic of that chart is going to be an important modifier. And the thing that concerns me the most in this chart is the strong square between Mars and Pluto, another indication that there may be some ongoing militaristic actions, violence, or destruction of some sort. So again, we have these sort of two paths. Something very well coordinated and harmonious is occurring, but also wounding and violence. And then we end this with the new moon on September 10th, which also looks fairly harmonious. This time, Venus is in opposition to Chiron, which means we could end with more wounding going on, particularly if people with Venus and Scorpio are very zealous about their ideas, very fixed on the idea of revenge and retribution. It's interesting here. Let's go back, take a look. Yeah, we started out with Venus in opposition to Neptune, a lot of unrealistic thinking, deception. In between, we had kind of a wide opposition at the lunar eclipse between Venus and Saturn, some suffering, some shortages, and we end up with Venus opposed to Chiron. Venus has a lot to do with our right brain, our values, and how we feel non-verbally about things, how we react to those things. And with all the sextiles and trines here, again, I look at the sixth harmonic for the September 10th new moon. And what concerns me is this strong square between Pluto, Neptune, and Sun and Moon. So these are some higher energies, some definite changes in perspective that are really trying to force their way into people's consciousness. And then we also have this T square between Jupiter, Mercury, Venus, and Chiron, which are conjunct. So again, wounding could be magnified a bit. So we're not out of the woods yet. Now, when it comes to America, well, we've got some good things going on. We still have Chiron sextile Venus, which is pretty strong and will be exact on September 7th. But we also have Saturn in opposition to natal Saturn, though this is waning now, but it's going to go away gradually, slowly. And we're getting a little close to transing Uranus conjunct natal Uranus. This won't be exact until 2027, but there's a history of whenever we have a Uranus return in America, the country gets involved with conflict and war, either at home, as in the Civil War, or abroad, as in World War II. So we get a little taste of it now in August and September. And things are kind of muddled still in the Middle East. Okay, and this shows the aspects of the solar eclipse to this July 2nd 1776 chart for America. You can see we have not only transiting Saturn opposite natal Saturn, transiting Mars conjunct natal Venus. That is not a peaceful configuration. So let's hope that wars and conflict can be avoided. The potential is certainly there. Now, when we look at Trump, uh, transiting Chiron, trine ascendant, that is getting stronger. That's throwing him a lifeline. The transiting lunar nodal axis is now conjunct his ascendant descendant. That is intensifying everything he's doing. He has had transiting Neptune opposition natal Neptune. There's about a week of that to go in this new lunar month. So we've seen that manifest as a lot of delusion and a lot of untruths that he has uttered. And Saturn opposition natal Chiron, he has certainly lost a lot of court battles, a lot of support. He has been wounded politically a lot, but he's still enduring. Now, in addition to the favorable trine from Chiron, he has transiting Uranus, trine natal Neptune. Neptune's in the second house. He's benefiting financially from a lot of things. And with transiting Jupiter conjunct his natal Pluto, that is very strong right now through the end of August. And Pluto's in his 12th house. He has been steadily expanding his power, but doing it discreetly, trying to do it out of view of the rest of the world, the rest of the public. Here are his transits at the solar eclipse. You can see Saturn strongly opposite Chiron and transiting Neptune strongly opposite natal Neptune, wounded and delusional. Vance, I pointed this out last lunar month, but this is something which lasts all year because it's progressed aspects. He's had his progressed sun ascendant, trine his natal midheaven as progressed midheaven, trine his natal moon. His star is rising this year. Let's see how far it takes him. As for Iran, it is going to do much better this lunar month. Jupiter is conjunct its moon, and Saturn is trine its natal moon. So the country and the people in the country, they are going to prosper more. And what we're seeing is that Iran seems to be calling the shots in the Strait of Hormuz now. And America doesn't quite know what to do. It doesn't have much control over the situation. Transiting Pluto will be in opposition to Jupiter. I think that's in the fourth house. So people will continue to be oppressed in Iran. And as we get toward the end of this lunar month, transiting Jupiter moves into an opposition to natal Mars. So when we move into the following lunar month, we really may see more aggression again from Iran. And here I'm looking at the lunar eclipse transits to this chart for Iran, set up for when the Shah handed over power to the Ayatollah and left the country. You've got Pluto in opposition to natal Jupiter, but Saturn is trining natal moon, Jupiter's conjunct natal moon. Iran is holding the cards now. So, to summarize, this month is eclipse season, with the new moon being a solar eclipse while the full moon is a lunar eclipse. On the surface, there are many favorable aspects this lunar month, but the charts for either the 6 or 4 harmonics add some caveats to the favorable expectations. Pluto's sextile Neptune is particularly strong this month, combining vision with power. Humanity will move toward a more transcendent perspective. In the middle of the lunar month, Jupiter trine Saturn will facilitate solid growth. This could be good for the stock market. However, discordant aspects involving Mars, Saturn, Venus, or Chiron could signal brief periods of discord. Also, the harmonic charts associated with the new and full moons suggest additional discord Mars and wounding Chiron this month. Overall, the new and full moon charts suggest an abundance of higher transcendent energy that many will tune into, but again, there will also be some continuing discord. America will probably experience some level of healing, but the situation with Iran is likely to drag on for the rest of the lunar month. However, with Saturn now retrograde, that may favor pauses to contemplate where this is all leading. However, with transiting Uranus getting closer to conjunction with natal Uranus, the possibility of war and revolutionary fervor will increase even as other indicators cool. It won't get red hot until next summer in 2027, but we may get a taste of it during this lunar month. Continuing, Trump will continue to experience wounding and delusions, but both may be waning. Furthermore, transiting Chiron trine Trump's ascendant will increase in strength and bring him some healing from other problems. With transiting Jupiter conjunct Trump's natal Pluto in the first half of the lunar month, Trump's power or desire for power may continue to expand. The negative influences are waning, but there's still the possibility that he may not be able to finish his term. With transiting Jupiter conjunct natal moon and transiting Saturn trinatal moon, Iran will have good fortune this lunar month and may be able to rebuild some of its infrastructure. However, with transiting Pluto opposite Jupiter, other forces may inhibit Iran's growth, and the regime will likely continue to oppress those citizens who are more progressive. And that's the end of this. So let me stop sharing my screen. Still have a little cough from a cold. Sorry about that. Okay, I've just gone a couple of minutes over 30 minutes, so that is not too bad. I almost achieved my goal of keeping it under 30 minutes, but I hope you found this very informative. The past lunar month was an incredible turning point, most likely, and this lunar month is also going to have a lot of intensities, even if there is a pause to reconsider what's going on and various conflicts around the world. So, hope you enjoyed this. I hope you join me for more. But for now, I'll just say so long and be well.